I think I have it now. Okay. So good afternoon, ladies. Hello, everybody. This is Carla Metzdorf. I am admin to the group Overcoming Anxiety for Stressed Out Moms Who've Had Enough, and I'm also an anxiety coach. And I'm coming live to talk to you today all about intrusive thoughts. So what we're going to talk about is the thoughts, why these thoughts are keeping around, why you can't get rid of them so quickly, and how to silence them. So let's dive right into that. Ladies, hi, how are you? As you come on, say hi. Hi. I see Lisa and Tiffany, Esmeralda, Morgan, and that's all it's showing me right now. Hi on YouTube. I see that there's a viewer on YouTube. Hi, Melissa. As you come on, say hi. Missy, Patrice. Hi, everybody. So we're going to be talking about intrusive thoughts. And I always like to start my live trainings with a definition because I want us to be on the same page. I don't want anyone to be like, what is she talking about? So an intrusive thought, what is it? An intrusive thought is basically an unwanted thought. It's a bothersome thought, a thought that you just don't like having on your mind. That's an intrusive thought. Now, intrusive thoughts, they just pop up. And it's like, I can't help it. I was minding my own business and this thought just came into my head out of nowhere, right? And I didn't like it. I didn't like the thought that I was having. I don't know why I was having it because left to my own devices, I wouldn't put this thought in my mind. It's really freaking me out, this thought. So that is an intrusive thought. Now, before we go on, I also want to give a definition to the difference between what is a thought and what is thinking, because when we usually use them like they're interchangeable, but they're not. A thought, really, my own definition, I kind of made this definition up. It's not in the dictionary, but to me, a thought is a manifestation of what you're using your senses. So what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. As you're using your senses, the action of using your senses, there's something popping up in your mind saying, oh, that's a beautiful thing, or I like the way that feels, or it's like an automatic response that's going on in your mind as your senses are picking things up, as you're doing things. Okay, that's the thought. It's just that manifestation. Now, thinking is what happens later, because after we have that thought, right, we start thinking, we start getting the rest, we start using the rest of the senses, we start putting more thoughts by thinking. So we will take that thought that we had, like let's say we saw a picture of somebody and we say, oh, how beautiful the picture. Okay, so that's something that just came to mind. Now we're also thinking in our head, maybe we're thinking, oh, I really loved her smile, or I love the earrings she was wearing, or I love the way her hair looked, or the way her makeup is. Or we're thinking, I really don't like the picture, but I had to say that because I didn't want to offend the person. What am I going to say? That the person really looks ugly? Like the thing that happens later is like all the thinking, what's going on after that. So thinking is like the rumination, that the thing that goes on and on after we have that initial thought. So thoughts. The thing is, it's very hard to stop a thought. Once we get a thought in our mind, that's like the thing that happens like unconsciously. Something happens and boom, a thought pops into our head. And it's really helpful to understand how the brain and the body work together. Because when you understand how the brain and body work together, you understand why you're anxious and you understand how anxiety affects how you think. Okay, why you have those initial thoughts, and then how having anxiety will affect the continuation, the thinking that follows after. So, in other words, like you can't, that initial thought is pretty involuntary, but what you can change is your thinking. You could always change your thinking. You have the initial thought, and you could always change the thinking around that. So, thoughts will come and go. Okay. Now, the thing is, when we have anxiety, all right, intrusive thoughts come and they're very involuntary. It's not like you're going to put them in your mind on purpose. So you could be sitting there minding your own business, and all of a sudden this thought just pops up in your mind. And when it comes in your mind, you're like, what was that? Why did I just think that? I have no idea why this thought came into my mind. So, excuse me. So let's say, I might as well just use something from my own life. So not all of you know this story. Some of you do, some of you don't. And every time I tell it, so when I was in the depths of having debilitating anxiety, one day I was also recovering from my cancer surgery. And I was watching television, and my father was in the yard with my children, and I was watching TV. And I can't remember what I was watching. I don't know if it was news or whatever. But as I'm watching TV, all of a sudden I get the thought in the head, in my mind, out of nowhere, I'm going to drown my kids. That when I give them a bath, I'm going to drown them. Well, when that thought started popping into my mind, I got really emotional. I started crying, and I think I cried for about 2 to 3 hours straight. Like, I could not stop crying. It really affected me because all I could think about was, why would I think such a thing? What kind of mother am I that I would have such a thought like that? And and back then I wasn't understanding how the mind and body work, and that like I was suffering from anxiety, and anxiety changes how my brain works. And I'm just thinking, well, if I'm thinking it, it must be true. Am I going crazy? Why would I have such a thought like that? I love my children. Why in God's name am I thinking this? And all I could do was just get emotional and cry and cry and cry. And it was just unreal what was going through my mind. So why was I thinking that? Well, you have to understand, ladies, as I said, the mind and the body work together, okay? So when you have anxiety, you're thinking with an emotional part of your brain. That part of the brain, and let me just say, your brain and your body are always working together to protect you. All right? Your brain, the body working together always to protect you. So it's trying to help you to survive. Some of those thoughts that you're getting, I get it. I mean, very, very intrusive. I mean, I had the thought of drowning my kids. Okay. So how is my mind and my body trying to protect me? I'm having a thought of drowning my kids. The thing is, when you have an emotional mind, okay, so when your mind, your anxiety has taken over, all right, so all your thoughts, your thinking is always focused on your anxiety, how you feel, the thoughts, the things that you watch on TV, the things you read. You're reading it with a different type of mind. Okay, not with a very logical mind, but with an emotional. So things that may not bother you if you're not emotional, they're going to bother you now. You're going to see it differently. So here I am. I'm watching TV. I'm going to drown my kids. This is what's going through my head. Now, the thing is, when you are anxious, okay, when something, first of all, I want to say intrusive thoughts come up not just when you're anxious, okay? You don't even have to be. First of all, you know what? Let me start from the beginning. It's normal to have intrusive thoughts. Let me just put that out there. And I don't usually use the word normal. People who don't even suffer from anxiety get intrusive thoughts. It's human to have intrusive thoughts. I just wanted to say that, okay? But when you have anxiety, that makes the way you think even worse. Those thoughts just pop up in your mind because now, because of how you feel, what you're going through, okay, your mind and your body are in this constant state of, we have to protect her. She needs to survive. You have this continuous concoction of chemicals going through your body. You're in this fight and flight stage. And what happens is you're constantly focused on how you feel, and those thoughts are like constantly coming into your mind. So here I am sitting there, and whatever I saw on TV triggered me. I can't remember what it was. We're talking many years ago, but it triggered me. And what happens is your mind starts doing these like worst case scenarios over and over. So, what if this happened? And what if you do this? And what if you do that? Because it's trying to get you to think of all the things that could happen. And so you can think about it and prepare. Is that making sense, ladies? Can anyone relate to that? So as I'm watching television and this like scary thought of drowning my kids is coming to my mind was trying to protect me, because it's like, hey, Carla, that thing you're watching frightens you. I can sense that you're like threatened, that you're very concerned about that. So let me have you think about this over and over, okay? Let's put this in your mind so that you could think about it and you can try to like solve it. Is that making sense, ladies? You know what? I'm not seeing the comments. Hold on. This is crazy. Not seeing the comments. All right, what I want to do is I'm going to just go into the group and see if I can see comments there. Because again, this didn't work for me as I wanted it to. Comments. Yes. It makes sense to me. Yes, that's my brain. Does every day. Okay. I'm seeing comments. Awesome. And I'm going to see them as they come, and I have to keep refreshing. So ladies, keep them coming. All right. So, so having these thoughts, I want you to know thoughts are just thoughts. There are things, manifestations that pop up into your brain, but you do not have to believe every single thing that comes into your mind. They're just thoughts. That's all they are. They're not you. See, the reason why we have these thoughts too is because they go against who we are. They go against our morals. They go against the boundaries we set for ourselves. They go against, they're not who we are, but we think that they are who we are because we take them seriously. Because like I thought, like, why would I have this thought if it wasn't true? Like, why would I think of something like that? What is even wrong with me? But as I studied anxiety and I understood the anxious mind, then I understood why I could possibly have a thought like that. Ladies, it's very important that you understand that your mind is always trying to protect you. Yeah, these intrusive thoughts, I mean, you don't want them and you want to swat them away. Oh, I'm not thinking, oh, I can't think that. I don't want to think that. Why am I thinking that? It makes me feel like I'm crazy. But the best thing you can do when you get a thought like that is just to acknowledge it. I mean, but this is why it's very important to understand anxiety, because if you don't, you're not. See, I didn't acknowledge the thought. I just went, why am I having that thought? I must be a crazy person. What is wrong with me? And I started getting very upset with myself and I started crying and I couldn't stop crying. But now that I know on anxiety, I understand when a thought pops up like that, like, what is my mind trying to tell me? Am I stressed out? Am I anxious? Did I get enough sleep last night? Also, what else is there? Did I get enough sleep? I'm trying to think of what else causes that. Oh, the stress, anxiety, getting enough sleep, hormones. Hormones can affect the way the thoughts come into your mind. And also medications. There are medications that can alter your thoughts and actually induce scary thoughts. So things like this can affect the way, your mind is working. So when you have this knowledge, when these thoughts pop into mind, you could just go, okay, now I know I have chronic stress. I know I am anxious. I'm not getting enough sleep. I am very hormonal right now. And I'm on medication. And you know what, ladies? I did it all. All those things I was experiencing. No wonder my thoughts were a little, and maybe all of you are too, or some of you are. Some of you are just having very chronic stress and anxiety, but you're sleeping well and maybe you're not on medication, and it doesn't have to be that whole concoction, but these are things that will affect your thoughts. And then what would happens is, when we have these thoughts, now, once you acknowledge the thought and you understand, oh, I'm having this thought, it's because of my anxiety, then your thinking can take over, okay? And you can have acceptance of the thought. In other words, it's just a thought. It's just a thought brought on by my anxiety, by my stress. I haven't been sleeping. I'm on medication. I mean, whatever you think it is, that is causing the thought. Okay. So, and then you go on and you take action. You start living life. Like, you don't dwell on that thought that you have. See, if you don't understand the mechanics of the mind, the body, and how all this works, what's going to happen is, and this is what happens to a lot of people, you have this thought and you go, what I did? What is this thought? Why am I having this thought? What is wrong with me? What kind of person am I to have such a thought? I don't understand this. And what that does is that makes you just think, rumination of thoughts over and over, the ongoing. I can't get this, like, you start like swatting it like flies, and then you try to ignore it. You try to pretend you're not having it. But the thing is, when you have a thought, you need to just acknowledge it and let it be. Acknowledge and let be. The moment, okay, you have a thought and you start saying, why? When is this thought going to leave me? Why can't I get this thought out of my head? What you're doing is you're reinforcing to the brain that this thought could be a challenge or a threat, or, every time we swat the thought away and we avoidance behavior is like the worst thing you can do with thoughts and symptoms. The more you avoid, the more you're reinforcing and telling the brain, this isn't good. This is bad. We need to avoid this. And the more it's going to try to protect you. Is that making sense, ladies? Everybody, everybody making sense to everybody? Everybody with me? Unfortunately, I can only see what's up in my screen right now. It's only allowing me to see like 5 at a time. So if there's questions that's scrolled up, unfortunately, I'm not going to see them. Yeah, but everybody's saying yes. Good. I'm glad we're on the same page because I don't want to move on until you're all there with me. So you have the thought, right? Now you're backing it up with thinking, like I did, sitting in my chair, thinking, what kind of mother am I? But you can change your thinking. Thinking you can change. You're not going to be able to take away that initial thought. Can't change that. But the thinking, you have control of what you further think, what you further tell yourself. Okay? So those bad case scenarios, those worst case scenarios that are going through your head, okay, you got to call it for what it is. I'm having these worst case scenarios. Now you can chase them all down if you want. That's up to you. I mean, let's take it. Let's say you're going on vacation, okay? So, and now we know vacations could be very pleasurable, of course. I mean, we all want to go on vacation because we want to relax, we want to enjoy. But what if, here we go, what if you're planning your vacation and you're going to go to some nice Caribbean, however you say it, tomato island, and all you're thinking is, I'm going to get on the plane, and you envision, the plane dropping out of the sky, killing you and your family, or you see yourselves on the beach somewhere and a tsunami coming, drowning you all. Like, instead of like seeing you getting there safely and enjoying each other's company and having the best time, all you think about are these worst case scenarios. So you think to yourself, okay, why are these thoughts coming into my head? So in other words, if you have any doubts, any worry at all about what can happen on this vacation, your brain is going to come up with these worst case scenarios so you could figure it all out before you get there. So what are you going to do with these worst case scenarios? You have a choice. You could get your thinking brain going. You could ruminate on it and just keep seeing the plane go down. What if it's going to happen? What if that happens? You can do that. You can see, you can start reading up on tsunamis and, what to look for just in case one's going to happen. Well, what am I going to start looking for so that I know what to look for? I mean, it's up to you if you want to chase down worst case scenarios. I actually have a friend who says that that's what she does before she goes on every trip. I mean, that's up to her. She thinks of all these worst case scenarios so that she is prepared that if and when they happen, she knows what to do. And a lot of people do think that way. A lot of people will live their life that way. But at the same time, ladies, as you're doing that, you know what you're not doing? You're not in the precious moment. You're not enjoying what's in front of you. You're not getting excited about the trip. Instead, you're focused on all these fearful thoughts and all this fearful thinking. So, the more you engage with a thought that comes and pops into your head, which is why I cried for hours, ladies, because I kept engaging with the thought, I'm drowning my kids. What? Where did that come from? I don't get it. Why am I having this thought? I kept engaging. I didn't shut it down. The more you engage with a thought, the more it's going to pop up. It's going to ruminate. For sure. But now that you know You don't have control, maybe that first thought that pops in your head, but you do have control of all the thinking that happens after. I'm having that thought because. Acknowledge, accept, and you could replace it. So another case scenario. Okay, let's go back to the vacation. How about you go, I'm about to go on my vacation. And then all of a sudden you have the thought, oh, the plane's going to go down. Yeah. So, okay. So instead, I know I'm having the thought of a plane go down. Yeah, that is a possibility. But you know what? I mean, it is what it is. It's something I can't control because, ladies, let's face it, a lot of these thoughts that we have, a lot of them are either not true or they're things that maybe could be true. They're possible, but what can you control? Seriously, can I control if the plane goes down? I cannot. The only thing I can control is that I just don't get on the plane. You gotta control what you can and accept what you can't. And I know easier said than done, but it's what is necessary to overcome all this. This is all about control. All about control. But the biggest fear out there is the fear of the unknown. Because do we have control of the unknown? We don't even know about it. So how do we have control of it? And that's what anxiety is, right? It's uncertainty. So when things happen and things pop into our head, we get these thoughts. Do I have control over whether I drown my kids or not? Oh, yes, I do. But that's why that was scary, because I would never do something like that. I would never do something like that. But what scared me is because I know I would never do something like that. It was against all my morals and everything I believe. But I was reacting to what I was watching because my mind was a very emotional mind. But if I had a more logical mind, if I wasn't as anxious as I was that day, whatever I was watching that day probably would not have even fazed me. I would have just been like, yeah, that's something I would never do. Like, I would just shut it down right away. Always keep in mind that anxiety changes you. It changes how you perceive information and how you store information. Changes things. You're not always thinking with a logical mind. Ladies, all this making sense? Everybody good? Anybody need clarification in anything I said? Did you have any intrusive thoughts just about your kids? Oh, I'm Jazzy. I'm just giving an example. I mean, that's a pretty big example. It was very hard for me to even admit that the very first time I said it. It maybe the first time you heard it, but I've been doing this for a while and I've said it many times. So if you've been with me for a long time, you're probably like, yes, I've heard this story before. But no, I've had other intrusive thoughts. And going back my whole life, yeah, I mean, I've had some kind of weird thoughts. But drowning my kids was just one that it was like, wow, like I couldn't believe what was going in my head. And the thing was, if I knew anxiety the way I know it now, that never would have happened. Or I would have had the thought and I would have been like, Carla, really? And I would have shut it down right away. Now, okay, I want to go back to that example of the plane going down because I didn't really finish what I was like saying. I got off on a tangent there because what you can do, okay, is you acknowledge, you accept, okay? But let's say you're having the thought, I'm going on vacation, my plane's about to go down, okay? Now you know the thought is just your anxiety, okay? It's just you thinking with your emotional mind. Is it something that can happen? Well, unfortunately, yes. But can you control it? No, you can't. Okay. So this is where acceptance is key. Okay. However, what you can do now, because you want to break the cycle, okay? Because what you do is when you engage with a thought that's bothersome, you're forming patterns, all right? You're telling the brain that I really am very afraid of this thought, and it's going to keep bringing the thought up over and over. It's going to make you ruminate. Okay, the rumination of the thoughts are going to happen over and over until you solve it, because your mind is going to keep going, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this, wants you to solve it. Remember, the thing is to survive. Okay, but what if you say, okay, I know why I'm having this thought. Okay, it's a concern, but what if you started using a tool like visualization? And you started imagining, closing your eyes, seeing you and your family getting on the plane. And you see the plane in the sky and then landing safely. And then you're in the hotel. The next thing you know, you're on the beach, you're enjoying Mai Tais and the whole thing. Start putting into your mind what it is that you want, instead of dwelling on what you don't want. Stop focusing on the problem and start focusing on the solution. That making sense? Yeah, Missy, you had that thought too? Well, yeah, you know what? And the thing is, I mean, that's the other thing, like moms who are, let's say, hormones. Okay, let's go into that for a minute, because I know there's a lot of new moms in this group, or moms who just had babies, and they're saying, with the hormones is coming a lot of anxiety, and the feelings, the thoughts. It is normal. Okay, it's not abnormal that you're hormonal, that with the hormones you're going to have some intrusive thoughts, and sometimes a mother will have a thought of smothering her baby. Yeah. Scary as that is, right? That is a thought. Anyone have perimenopause and anxiety? I kind of did. I mean, kind of, and I say kind of because I felt weirdness in my body. I don't know how else to say it. Like my energy was off. But compared to what I used to feel, it wasn't really anxiety from me, the way I used to feel it. But I think if I didn't understand anxiety the way I do now, it probably would have been more. But because I understand anxiety and why I have it and how to deal with it, the feelings I got with perimenopause, they weren't as bothersome because I knew how to deal with it, if that makes sense. This is why knowing the mind-body connection is very, very important, ladies. When you understand how the mind and body work together, when you understand what anxiety is, why it consumes you, you could take the right actions to overcome it. Because you just heard me say, yeah, I had feelings, I had things going on with my perimenopause. But because I understand what it is, I kind of just I shut it down. I didn't engage with it. I didn't make my mind think that I was in danger. I didn't engage with those feelings and those thoughts, I shut it down and I just kept going. I have depression, anxiety, and I am in post-menopause. Okay. You do too, Kimberly? Okay. For sure, hormones will affect the way that you think, for sure. Hormones. So, but again, having the knowledge, knowing understanding. What about not being able to sleep? Yeah, for sure. Maybe you need to rewatch this, Patrice. I don't know when you came on. That was mentioned before. And we get intrusive thoughts because, we have chronic stress, we have anxiety, we have a lack of sleep, or we have insomnia, hormones, or we're on certain medications. Medications are also known to alter thoughts, or we have it all, which is what I did. I had it all. Okay. Yeah, because when you're sleep deprived, yeah, you're not focusing, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, I always said my brain feels like mashed potatoes. That's the best way I can tell anybody how my brain felt. Like it was just mush, all mashed potatoes up there. Like I felt like I had no control of what was going on in my head. But drowning my kids was an intrusive thought. Did I ever have others? Yes. But that's the one that stands out to me. And that's the one I keep telling you all and about over and over. And that's the one that I'll probably continue to talk about. Is it called brain fog, Patrice? Is that what brain fog is? I don't know. I guess so. I just felt like I could not think for myself. I couldn't. Oh, it was, yeah. I mean, I haven't felt that in ages, but I just remember like, ugh, it like hurt to think. It really did. Um, so when you have anxiety, okay, let's talk about the anxious mind. You're gonna have a thought, and then you're going to engage with that thought. You're going to think that am I going to act on this thought, which is what makes it scary. And you're going to react to it with fear. You're going to react to it like I did, like, oh my God, this is something I'm going to do. And I cried for hours. So you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are just thoughts. They're just thoughts. You do not have to believe everything that pops up into your brain. Remember, the mind is always trying to protect you. If you want to chase it down, why am I having this thought? That's up to you. If you want to, chase it down. Hi, Cindy. But because, we do those worst case scenarios. And again, your brain is trying to get you to survive. It's going to say to you, Carla, what about this? And what if that? And what if that? And what if that? And even if it scares you, it wants you to, it's trying to have you figure everything out so that you're protected. Keep that in mind the next time these intrusive thoughts come into your brain. Acknowledge, accept, take action. Okay. So, okay. Thank you, Kim. I'm glad this is good information. Does anybody, okay, you know what? I know there are some questions. I can't see them. It's not letting me scroll. Does anybody that is on right now that has any questions about intrusive thoughts? Because even if you just sent me a question, I don't have it on my screen. You know what? Let me refresh. Let me see if refreshing my screen will show me more. No, it did not. I don't see any questions. Nobody has any questions? How do you ignore them? Well, Missy, I'm not saying to ignore them. I don't recommend that you do ignore your thoughts. I wouldn't recommend that at all. So I'm not going to tell you how to ignore them. I don't recommend doing that. I am telling you to acknowledge them. I want you to acknowledge. I don't want you to focus on it. I don't want you to dwell on the thoughts, but you should acknowledge them for what they are. The thing is, Missy, I think what you're asking too is how are they going to just like start going away? Is because when you engage with an intrusive thought, okay, you are telling the brain that it's right, that this is a problem thought for you. And there's every reason why it should still keep popping up, because you got to figure this out. You got to figure it out. But when you start telling the brain, this is just an intrusive thought, and don't worry, we're safe. I got this. You don't focus on it. You let the brain know it's a concern, but I have no control. Like, the plane ride I was talking about. I'm having the intrusive thought that the plane's going to go down, but I have no control. Unless I'm the captain of the plane, I'm a pilot. Do I have control? No, I just got to trust that I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. Right. So it's like not engaging with the thought and using your thinking to empower yourself to control what you can and accept what you can't. So when intrusive thought comes, just become aware, accept, acknowledge. Well, aware and acknowledge, Cindy, are really the same thing. When you're aware of something, you're acknowledging it, okay? So you're aware, then you accept it. It's an intrusive thought. That's all it is. I'm getting it because I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I haven't slept, my medication, it could be any of those reasons, right? Or all of them. But don't try to chase that down either. Don't be like, which one is causing? That's not the important thing. The important thing is just to know, hey, I'm stressed right now. I'm anxious right now. Of course, I'm having a thought like this, but it's not me. Don't attach yourself to the thought. It's not you. Okay? If anything, because it's not you is why it bothers you. That's what I said before. It goes against who you are. It goes against your morals. Ladies, you want something to worry about? Worry when you have a thought and and you have this intrusive thought. Like, let's say, and I can't even believe I'm saying this. Let's say I had the thought of drowning my kids like I did all those years ago. But let's say instead of being mortified by the thought, okay, and crying for hours that I had the thought and calling myself a bad mother, let's say I had the thought and I actually was like, wow, maybe that's something I should do. Wow. And it doesn't, like, it actually makes you feel good, or it brings you pleasure. Or when you have an intrusive thought and it brings you pleasure and it makes you feel good, and actually you start contemplating on doing something, that is when, ladies, please, 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 you need to get help. Okay? That is when you should be concerned. I'm so tired of thinking so much, even just trying to figure out why people treat you how they treat you. I'm tired of letting other people's behaviors affect me. Well, Marty, I get that. But, that goes back into the whole control thing. Do you have control of other people? Do you have control of how other people think and act and talk? And you don't. You only have control of what you're thinking, how you're reacting, how you're being in life. So, if anything, you're causing your own pain. Why? You're trying to figure out something that you're never going to be able to do. You can't control others. Why people treat you how they treat you? Not for anything. We all have our own mindsets. We all have our own stories. And when I did all my studies with the mind, understanding why people behave the way they do, the thing that I learned was, we all, there are things like my parents did and said that I'm thinking, should a parent say that to a child or do that to a child? But then once I started studying behavior and studying the mind, it came clear to me where my parents were coming from. You have to understand, you were influenced by people who raised you, but they were influenced by people who raised them. Okay. And if they're abusing you, whatever, I'm not saying to dismiss all that. But if you want to understand Like, if you, I mean, you're sitting there trying to figure out why people are a certain way, and that's what's going through your mind over and over. It's because that is what they learned. That is the behavior that they learned. That's what they know. And they just haven't figured anything else out. It's the rejection that hurts and making you feel worthless. Oh, I understand that because I felt that for years myself. Rejected and totally worthless. Yep. As a matter of fact, I wear a bracelet, which you can't see, but there's a bracelet on my wrist right here. And it says, "You are worth it." And I wear that on purpose to remind myself that I'm worth it. I am not that worthless person that I thought I was. See, the thing is, when we get a thought in our mind, we have a choice. We can take that thought and just make it go in our mind over and over and keep reacting to it, keep avoiding it or reacting to it. You keep avoiding it and reacting to it, it's going to keep coming back. Or we could be aware of why that thought's coming into our mind. We could be aware of it. We could accept it for what it is and why we're having it. And then we take action. In other words, action is basically, did it cause us a little anxiety to have the thought? So like, how do I calm myself down? Or, go do what you were doing, finish. What were you in the middle of? Were you playing games with your kids when you had that thought? Continue playing the game. Get busy, do something. Now, I don't mean distract. I'm not trying to say distraction here. What I'm trying to say is you acknowledge, accept, and then live your life. It's just a thought. It's not who you are. It's not true. It may be possible, but it's not true. It's not what's happening now. And if it's something that's going to bother you, what can you do about it? If it's a what if thought, if it's a worst case scenario, and if you want to chase it down and say, well, what if that did happen? What can I do about it? You can research it and see what you can do about it. Because ultimately, if you ask me, it's in God's hands, right? God has the last say. So, yeah, I know, Marty. That's what I teach. When you have thoughts, you take them captive. That's awareness. That's taking your thoughts captive is awareness. That's the whole part of my formula. Have the awareness of the thought, which is acknowledging it. Get yourself to be very present, because in the present time, it's just all you've got, and accept that thought for what it is. Tell yourself what's really happening in that present time. And then you have to take some kind of action. Take that action, like reprogram, like I said before, visualize. Tell the brain what you want it to think. That is how you're going to break the pattern. Because this could become a habit, ladies. This can become such a habit that when I get a certain thought in my head, I'm going to let it ruminate. The rumination of thoughts over and over. These intrusive thoughts, the unwanted thoughts, they're just going to go over and over in my head until you break the pattern. But it's up to you to tell the mind that you're safe, that what it's focusing on is not the truth. Or, okay, thank you for bringing this thought into my head. I'll think about it. Maybe I do need to make a plan. Maybe I do need to think about, how I'm going to survive this, But then let it go. The more you engage, the worse it's going to get. I don't have any of my babies near. They're out of the state, so that depresses me lots. So my thoughts are always taking me to such sadness and depression, especially after losing my 99-year-old mama just 3 years ago and my two sisters. Yeah, I understand, Marty. I mean, I'm sorry for your losses and, depression and, and how all this is going to affect the way you think. Now, the thoughts are going to come and go, but you do have control of your thinking. Okay? Rewatch this. I don't know when you came on. I don't know if you've seen the beginning, but I would rewatch this, and it's up to you to take control of the thinking process. The thoughts that are going to come into your head are going to come. Okay? But it's up to you to decide. Are these thoughts that I'm going to entertain with more thinking and engage with, or are these thoughts that I'm just going to, just passing through? I'll definitely watch the replay. Okay, Julie. Thanks for letting me know. You're so funny. So ladies, that's thoughts, that's thinking. They're two separate things. Thoughts are just thoughts. They're not you. You don't have to entertain it. You have control of the thinking that comes behind it. Yeah, for sure. Pray about it. I mean, even Jesus, in the Bible, it even says, take captive of your thoughts, for sure. Because what pops into your mind, I mean, what you actually act on, is going to determine a lot, So that's why thinking is very, very important. It's very important. And you have control of the thinking process of it. I just want to make sure that I touched upon everything. I'm just going to look at my, because I just keep talking. Yeah, because we tend to overthink. We'll get a thought in our mind and we'll just overthink it and let it go and go and go. But ladies, always remember, the more I engage with this thought, the more I'm reinforcing with my mind that there's something wrong, and the more it's going to come back. The more I ignore the thought, the more I pretend it's not there, the more I resist it, the more it's going to come back. So acknowledge. It's just a thought. I'm anxious. That's awareness. Acceptance is this thought. Is it true? Is it something that's going to happen? Is it something that could happen? Is this something I want to chase down? All this is up to you. I can't tell you what to do. But understanding how it works will help make it easier for you to know what to do, to make that decision. All this making sense, ladies? Anybody have any questions? I want questions. Questions? Let me press refresh again. Let me see if anything updated. After I get off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look over everything. If there's any question that I missed, I definitely, of course, will answer it. No one's question is going to go unanswered. Okay. Oh, you're welcome, Missy. I'm glad that you got something out of this. You're so very welcome. Okay, you know what then, ladies, I'm glad that you all joined me today. And for all of you watching the replay, still make comments. Everybody just make comments. Be free to ask me questions later. You could always say, hey, I just watched the replay. I have this question, just let me know. I'm happy to answer anything, okay? So be well, ladies, and mind your thoughts. Just mind them. They're just thoughts, and don't no reason to be afraid of them. They're just thoughts. Just thoughts. They're not you. Be well. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye, ladies. Take care. Bye.